Susan Lowe, and my current hat is the Green Party MLA candidate for Scrambled Oil Roads, which is right here, in the provincial election on May 14th. Prior to entering politics, I have run my own consulting business for the last 10 years, and I've specialized in strategic planning for nonprofit organizations and family businesses. So I was a bit surprised that I was here as opposed to in business and management, because I have a master's in business administration, but Green Party gets me in here, I guess. My piece of advice for someone seeking a career, and I think this applies to any field, is to build your skills in project management and communication, because if you can build a reputation for yourself as somebody who takes on projects and is able to get them done and completed and show results, then everybody that you work with will remember that. And as I work with more and more people, and I've hired people in my company, it is not as common as you might think for people to actually follow through. So if you are a person who does complete things and is organized and communicates with other people about your status, any roadblocks you're encountering, without coming looking for help every time there's a roadblock. But if you're a person who is just really proactive in getting things done, then you will build fans, and you will build people who want to see you get ahead, and they will go out in the community and speak about your good work, and probably do more for your career than you can by tooting your own horn. So it's yes, you do need to toot your own horn, but it's great if you can have a few influential people who toot it for you and get to places that you may not be able to get on your own. Thanks.
So my name is Jennie Christianson. I work for Stantec Consulting on the peninsula. I run the environmental practice for the company on the island. My background is actually in aquatics and toxicology, so I study toxic effects of chemicals on wildlife, humans, as well as monitoring how these contaminants are transported through the environment and their ultimate fate. My advice to a student looking for a job, based on what I've seen in our own workplace with young people, is no job is beneath you. No task is beneath you. It is an opportunity to learn, and even if it's boring and easy to do, there is an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity. You have to look at everything in a positive light. You really have to learn that you have to earn your place. You've got to put in the time at the beginning, get in with the details, get those details down pat, and then you can start moving up, to the 5,000-foot level. Work at that level. Then you can move up to the 10,000-foot level, and you'll be able to help guide the process because you'll understand the details part.
I'm Henry Lee. I'm with the Capital Regional District, commonly known as the CRD. My role there currently is about working with community groups, businesses to promote environmental protection. My background is I'm a biologist by training, but through the years I've started off as a lab tech, worked out in the field, got into writing bylaws. Now I'm into education. I get involved with data management. So it's a wide diversity, and that sort of leads to some of the things my cohorts have already said, that is diversity. Project management is a huge component, no matter how small or big the project. There's always a beginning, there's also the process, and there's also closure. And that's the biggest thing that a lot of people do. They do the work, but there's no closure. So business management is project management is really important. The other thing is communication. No matter what level of work you do, you have to present the information, present the work you've done. If you can't communicate it, doesn't matter how good the work was done, people don't appreciate what's being done. So if you don't have good communication skills, you don't get to promote what you have done, what you want to get done.
I'm John Weens. I'm currently with SLR Consulting Canada. It's an environmental consulting firm. There I'm responsible for environmental site assessments. Not responsible in the manner of directing everything by any means, but more in an advisory role for quality control and to give advice probably on more complex projects, to assist in proposal development and in project management of selected projects, I guess. We have practice, as Stantec and others do, across the country and at other locations. So we get have the opportunity to work with all the offices across Canada, and that's one of my roles, to stay in touch with all the offices and to provide some links and provide advisory services. Previous to, I've worked for several consulting firms in a similar capacity. Prior to that, I was with provincial government for 18 years, I guess, in the Ministry of Environment, and prior to that, forests, lands, and water resources. I'm dating myself, I guess. Former ministries. They seem to reorganize every 3 or 4 years. So, prior to that, I was on faculty at UBC for several years, jointly between the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences and the Westwater Research Center, which is the Water Resources Center there. So I've had opportunity to hire and advise in a number of different settings, and so you think, well, it's very different in consulting than in government than at the university. It's not in many respects. It's very similar. Same characteristics that Jenny and Henry and others have mentioned are very important in all of those settings, and there's opportunity to excel in each of those settings with those skills. And I would concur entirely that take every opportunity that comes to you as a learning opportunity. It's some jobs may seem trivial, routine, boring, or minor. Surprising how you look back at some of those positions and say, you know, I learned that there, and I can sure use it here. So whether you've gone to a management level or you're directing projects, surprising how often the experience at the level, at a lower level, provides a stepping stone for management of a project, knowing what the operational day-to-day activities might be, what the logistics of a project need to be, all of those kinds of things. So look at opportunities, relish them, and sometimes special projects come your way, and just because you haven't done it before, don't say, maybe I'm not up to it. Grab it. It provides a lot of opportunity for meeting new people, for training, all of those kinds of things.
So questions? Anyone have any questions? Oh, come on. I have a few preset questions, but
You have provided us with advice on what we should do. What would you expect in particular from a candidate in regards to qualifications, I guess other types of responsibilities in positions similar to yours? So, anyone?
I think I'd like to hear everyone's perspective.
Oh,
actually. We had a set of questions. I'm gonna break it off into two. One, I'd like to hear what you are looking for in a resume when you're looking at it, and I would also love to hear what you're looking for at the interview when someone gets the interview. Okay. So would that be okay if we had each person say what you're looking for, first of all, in the resume, and second of all, what you were looking for in an interview setting?
when you said the word qualifications, are you thinking in terms of education or how to present yourself?
I guess experience, qualifications, because I guess a lot of us are undergraduates and some of us may have experience in the field and others may not. So there's that challenge, or a lot of jobs are asking for experience. Like how do we market ourselves as inexperienced professionals in the field?
So I'll tell you the first thing I look for in a resume. Don't laugh. I look for spelling and grammar. Because if you can't get that right, then I worry about what other kinds of small mistakes are going to happen. And when I'm speaking as in my business hat. So when I'm hiring a person to work with me in my consulting firm, often the work that they're doing, I want it to be able to go directly out to clients, so I don't want to have to worry that the client's name is going to be spelled wrong. So if you can get that right in a resume, then you get beyond the first stage. What I look for, because I do actually often interview people from undergraduate programs, is I would like to see that you have volunteer experience, even if you don't have work experience. And that you've done a volunteer job for more than just a few weeks, that you've actually attached yourself to something, become passionate about it, and really tried to make a contribution. And I'm actually not that picky about what kind of organization you've worked for, but I want to see that there's been something aside from just schoolwork. And I know that schoolwork is enough of a load, but it is good to see that you have enough passion and enthusiasm for something to do it, even if you're not being paid to do it. Because I don't want to have to worry about whether or not everything that I ask you to do is in your job description. In an interview setting, I like to see enthusiasm and passion, and that you've done some research into my company and the kinds of projects that I work on, and a little bit of nerdiness. Just that you have something that you care so much about that you've gone beyond. So I had a cover letter from someone for a co-op job that I hired for, and the first page of the cover letter was a photograph that she had edited in Photoshop. There was 4 pictures of her in different places in her apartment, and a very large bagel on the couch. And the caption was, "There's a bagel in the room and it wants a job." Now, at first, when I was looking at resumes, I just sort of turfed that one because that's just weird. But then I was looking through everything else, and I'm like, yeah, all of these other resumes just kind of leave me cold. So I went back to the bagel resume, and I started looking at it again, and I thought, part of me just, rages against the kitschiness of it, but it totally got my attention, and it turned out that her passion was actually photography. So she had shown her passion.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on that. When I was interviewing, when I was working for a large airline industry in Toronto, again, it was a co-op student, and I was interviewing several of them, and he came in with his resume, but more importantly, he came in with a collage. And because he was trying to articulate what he wanted to do now, what he wanted to do in the future, and where he saw himself, and it was the most fascinating resume. It showed what his dreams, what his visions were, not just from a work-related point of view, but from a personal perspective of where he saw himself now and well into the future. I hired him as the co-op student, and he worked with me. He was absolutely fabulous, and he was passionate about what he wanted to do, and that came across in the collage, and it came across in his presentation, in the interview, and in the words that he wrote.
Okay. So on a resume or CV that comes across my desk, again, I echo your response with the writing. The writing and the spelling, that's a big one. If you can't even do that, then, because of course a big part of our business is writing reports, communicating clearly with clients, internally, higher up, and it's a #1 priority for our company. So definitely watch your spelling and grammar. The other thing that's kind of maybe surprising what we look for, which would help you know, people just starting out in the environmental field is we're all salespeople. We have to sell ourselves, we have to sell our ideas, we write proposals all the time. So I know probably a lot of you have sales experience that you wouldn't even think to put on your CV applying for an environmental job, but I would. If you work in retail, if you are a waitress, it shows us that you know how to work with customers. Anyway, so that shows us a different kind of skill set that you wouldn't necessarily get in the classroom. Those soft characteristics about yourselves are really important too. One thing I love about Stantec is that we focus a lot on people's strengths, and that doesn't necessarily mean things you pick up in a classroom, your knowledge, because you all essentially have the same degree. But what makes you different? What are your strengths? Do you know what your strengths are? Do you know how to build on your strengths? And I would say those are the types of questions that we would ask in an interview. How well do you know yourself? Do you know what your weaknesses are? Do you know how to manage your weaknesses? Doesn't mean you have to fix your weaknesses, as long as you know what they are and you can work around them and build upon your strengths. I would say those were the most important things that we look for.
Great points. Disadvantage of being down here is like, how did you recover that? I have to agree. Your resume, you've probably heard this before, but it's your first impression. So if you do have those typos and errors, you know, it hits the interviewer or the person looking at the resume. The other thing is, you mentioned that some people have experience, right, in the field. I'm going to sort of echo you, is that a lot of times we're looking for other experience, ability to deal with problems, ability to manage projects. So it could be, you know, painting a house. You know, you can express, you know, you got to get a budget, you got to set up your timing. All those things are important. So it doesn't have to be an environmental field, as long as there's some kind of project management component to it. It's okay. Oh no, I've lost my thought now. No. Vision in your resume is important. Where you see yourself, what you see the job is, what you think the job is. Because the reality is, you know, you get 2-page posting or a 2-page or even a little small advertisement in the newspaper. It doesn't really explain the whole job. So if you can just fill in the void and see what that job could be, it's a good thing to have that in your resume, especially in your interview. Because a lot of times we won't go into a textbook and say, you know, how do you do a BOD analysis or what is suspended solids? We're expecting you will have some knowledge on that and that you can learn that. It's the ability to learn and to adapt is what's more important to us. An ability to do, you know, lead your own projects and move forward, you know, manage yourself. So if you can express that in an interview, even if the question is one way, and they say, well, you know, what is TSS or what is BOD or any of the, you know, any analysis you may have been involved with. If you don't know it, you can say, hey, this is how I find out how to do it. You know, I'd go to this reference material. So even if you get draw blank, you may want to explain how you do it, how you find out. And that helps me in an interview, that, okay, at least this person will know how to get the information.
Yeah, I'd echo a number of the items that have been mentioned already. When we talk to a candidate or look at a resume, we don't just obviously go look through the list, okay, what courses have been taken. Sure, it's an aspect. We look at the balance of the presentation, the experience, and again, experience. It might be part-time work, it might be volunteering with a local organization, and some expression of interests, and the word passion has been used, that's really important. What are you aware of? What do you keep your eyes on? What trends do you follow? Do you know about carbon trusts and carbon taxes, and do you know about water conservation, and you know what are the topic areas that might interest you? The aspects of goals and aspirations is an important aspect as well. You may be at, you're all at different levels. I guess there are lots of opportunities for professional involvement and professional registration, and that always takes time, but the effort toward it and starting early is quite important. And so if you say, well, I've looked around and you know, if I do this, this, and this, I can get in streamed for an RP Bio or for a PEng or for an ASCT or for a PChem or, you know, one of those, just, you know, you've looked at it, you've looked at the opportunities, or you say there's some other registration, a LEED certification or something like that that's of interest to me and I'd like to work toward that. And are there some chances, if I took this job, to get some experience that I could build on to get that experience? Just some that comes out in discussion, not necessarily in the resume, but it is important. I don't know how many times I've had colleagues say, I wish I had registered and got started sooner. I'd be further along in that process. It may seem trivial in the early stages, just like saving for an RSP when you're a student or something. But getting started early is important. Just a couple of points.
And the other advantage of that is also the networking you get involved with.
Yeah, there's lots of those aspects. You can attend meetings, meet people, networking at those events, just understand the perspectives, where people are coming from, what the trends in the public eye and politics are, all of those.
Great, yeah. A lot of these organizations also offer luncheons, you know, the ability to continue your education, because the reality is once you finish your courses here and graduate, you're still a constant learning curve. New techniques, new priorities, new issues. So it's good to keep fresh anyway. So joining these organizations gives you the ability to link in with that.
I had one of the questions that was presented ahead of time suits this as well. If you had to suggest an organization someone join, and I know it could be difficult, but if you had to pick one or a few, I have my own letters from my professional career. These letters mean something to me, and I came to Royal Roads and no one has a clue what all these letters after my name actually represent, but in my profession it really means a lot, and there's some that are fly by the night and some that really represent something. So I wouldn't mind if each of you could think about an organization you might suggest someone join, or give me some because that's not my industry, so I'd love to.
Well, there's some that have more regular, more accessible meetings, I guess. Air and Waste Management Association comes to mind, which is an environmental organization. It's international, that with local chapters, and others are less accessible, I guess, locally. So that's just one example. I mean, we're most of, if we have registrations, I'm a member of the Institute of Agrologists, Professional Agriculturists. We have regular meetings that are open and are attended by a wide range of professional disciplines, and all of the organizations are like that. But some are more visible and I guess more regular and open.
That's right. Yeah. AW, Air and Waste Management Association, is one of those organizations that do hold regular luncheon meetings through the fall and winter. So that, you know, and a wide range of subject on air and waste, right? So it's a good subject to get into. The other one is BCWWA, which is the Water and Waste Association. They hold annual conference, but they also have local activities as well. That's an area of focus for me because I'm in the wastewater industry.
I would say if you are a biologist, you probably want to join the College of Applied Biology and get your RP Bio. That's usually helpful, or RP Tech, or whatever it is. And for me, I'm biased too. With my toxicology background, it has been invaluable to be a member of the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry, as well as being involved in the aquatic toxicity workshop. Just meeting people all over North America, talking, communicating your ideas, and that's how I got probably 90% of the opportunities, is just meeting people and talking over during the conference or your regular chapter meetings.
So, not a scientist. The groups that I've been a part of here in Victoria that have been incredible, one of them is called the Emerging Leaders Network, and it's a group that was formed by Volunteer Victoria possibly 3 years ago, and they do periodic training, and it's all kinds of subjects related to working in the nonprofit sector. So they have done, actually I've delivered training for them on making budgets in the nonprofit world. There's been all kinds of personal development things, stuff on leadership, training sessions on using influence when you don't have power. So they get, I mean, their sessions usually cost $10, sometimes for a 3-hour training session. So it's amazing value. It's great networking as well, because there's, I think, close to 200 members now and this is all just Victoria. The other group that I have found really helpful and enjoyable is going to the CRD's Resilient Region Exchange breakfasts. The next one, I believe, is April 19th, unfortunately way down in town at Oak Bay Beach Hotel. But that is a room full of people who work in the environmental and sustainability fields. So when you want to get out there and start networking and meeting people for work or for projects, you want to be in that room, because that's where a lot of the movers and shakers are. And being a business person, I just always have joined the Chamber of Commerce wherever I am, and I found it wonderful, not just for business opportunities, but just to meet like-minded professionals. They always have great mixers, and as a self-employed person, it's nice to get out there and actually kind of have co-workers.
I will say my interview here at Royal Roads, because my old job I went to all the chamber mixers, and one of the ladies on the panel knew me from the chamber, and I always just took it as a nice place to go and talk with people, and it really did help my career to have that connection. Oh, I know you, I actually seen you before, and we talked, and it wasn't about this job.
Yeah.
But it was such a nice handshake to have that human connection, for sure.
Yeah, and sorry, I meant to say also that, you gotta sometimes move outside of your area of expertise as well to find opportunities and meeting people. And the place that I'm at now is I'm getting out of the sort of blinders of environment and toxicology, and I'm moving into my community and learning more about what our local businesses are doing, how we can help them, working with the people, and that's been invaluable. The people that you meet and the opportunities that you didn't even know if they existed. So.
Yeah, I would concur with that a lot. I guess I usually get into my office very early in the morning, and I've quite often will scan whether it's the Toronto Globe and Mail or the Fort St. John Review or the Prince George newspaper or New York Times, and then I'll sometimes post those articles on the bulletin board right beside the water cooler. And it provides opportunity for interaction with my colleagues in terms of environmental topics, opportunities for new work, just awareness of what are some emerging issues that we should talk about a little bit more, maybe that we can provide or look for opportunities in. So there's all sorts of ways, and I concur going to Chamber of Commerce meetings. In the past, been a member of the Environment Committee of the Chamber of Commerce, and that does provide lots of business contact opportunities and ongoing friendships that develop in those contexts.
And you've got one natural cohort right now. Your classmates you're going to be your cohorts in the working world as well. So, maintain those relationships, because in the future, they could be your boss, or they could be your cohort, or you could be their boss. I mean, the reality is it's a small environmental group. Yeah, it's amazing how outside of your work field, you'll still be bumping into each other, so.
Especially in Victoria.
Yes, especially.
I actually want, can we just do by a poll of hands, how many people are planning to work in Victoria in their future career? I'm just going to say for future recording, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, okay, 10 approximately. How many people plan to work in BC?
Oh.
And Victoria, of course, includes that. Okay, and how many people are thinking in Canada? And anyone global? Is anyone purposely going to look outside of Canada? Okay, so that didn't help with the recording at all. But it puts it in context. I used to be an employment counselor before this job, and I always advise when you do sign up for some professional organization, think, is it only valid in BC? Or is it valid for all of Canada, or is it international? And before you start investing your time and money in these professional organizations, do research and think about where your career is going. If you're going to stay in BC, great, pick a BC chapter or pick a BC organization. But it takes a little bit of searching to find out if these organizations are internationally recognized, if you would like to work internationally. So I highly advise some research. Do you mind if I just go? Questions. Oh, there's a girl behind you. Sorry, she was really good at getting her hand straight up.
Hello. Going back to the resume questions, if someone was to put a picture on their resume, would you much rather see like a formal graduate picture or something like in their niche, like hiking or traveling, more eccentric? Or do you like to see pictures on resumes? Anyone of you?
I'm going to take that on first. One thing I did mention on the resume question was you got to know your company that you're applying to. It's like really big things. Often see resumes that you can tell it's generic because the sentence doesn't make sense because it looks like they just put another name in there. So to answer your question on that is, if you know your company, know what their attitude is, their approach, then you can choose formal or informal.
Okay.
So you can't just plunk the same picture on every resume.
Some jobs will be a computer looking at it first,
Yes.
right? If you want to work for the provincial government, a computer sees it and says, yep, you matched up, then you go to a human.
Yeah.
So you can't get beyond that because a computer is looking at it first, so why worry about the picture if that's pretty much
I would say that it's hard not to judge you if you put a picture on. So if you put a picture on, I would go with the more casual one where you can't really see the person's face. So it would be like, I'm hiking on a mountain, you're jumping up, or something like that, if you want to show that you're really outdoorsy or something, but you can't actually see like a close-up of your face because we can't help it, we'll judge you right away. Anyway, that would be my advice.
I worked for a headhunter when I was doing my master's, and I would say that if you're applying for a larger organization, basically anything other than a fairly casual, like locally owned organization, that a photo on your resume will make the HR professionals very uncomfortable because it's very difficult for an HR professional to adequately judge your resume if they know what you look like, because they're concerned about whether there's going to be a perception of bias based upon your age, your gender, your appearance,
Race.
The whole thing. So if you're, getting the bagel picture, clearly she could see from the job posting that I was applying for someone to work directly with me, and it worked. But more times than not, I would say that an HR professional will be uncomfortable seeing a picture.
Okay, yeah.
I was going to ask, are there emerging skill sets that people in your industries are going back for training in, or do you see growing needs for new competencies or abilities in your fields going into the future?
Can you repeat the question just for the recording?
Sure. As I understood the question, it was, are there emerging areas of expertise or competency that are perhaps particularly important and providing opportunities for employment, or or is it more basic skills that are looked at and valued? I think it's both. I think they're at least in the areas that I'm familiar with, in waste management, site assessment, environmental site assessment, there are basic skills and competencies such as hydrogeology, groundwater assessment, environmental chemistry, those kinds of things, which are still very valuable and basic. But there's familiarity and additional skills in perhaps energy energy use evaluation, and the kinds of things that we're seeing quite a bit of discussion in regard to sustainability, life cycle analysis of products, and from resource materials through the processes to waste and the reuse and recycling. Those kinds of emerging areas provide opportunity for skills, but there's a range there all the way from, if you like, electrical engineering to just an understanding of broad life cycle activities.
I would say on the less technical side, because it probably depends on your background, the things that I would work towards is to improve my abilities to work in a team environment, so working with different personalities and strengths, building your leadership skills and your communication skills, and as you had said, your project management, like being able to, you know, work with a team and a project and guide them and lead them to the finish line. I think if you can build on those, you can take your technical skills and fly, right?
I know a number of people that I have worked with have gone back to school. They've been taking facilitation classes. So managing meeting processes, managing projects, that sort of thing. And the other thing I'm seeing now is, thankfully, people going and learning about public consultation processes and public engagement processes. So the IAP2, International Association for Public Participation, they have frameworks and they have various training programs. And anyone who's able to interact with and understand how to engage public on a project, whether you're working in an environmental area or engineering, anything like that, that understanding of how to engage the public will be very helpful going forward.
I'm going to take a bit of everybody's there. It is the leadership one is important. Is knowing people, the ability to work with all different types of people, different genders, different races, different cultures, different age groups. Those are, you will see in the work field, there's a dynamic group out there. People who've been in the field for 30, 40 years, people who have just gone into the program. And if you can work with different groups, that will fit into any work you do. The reality is you never work out there alone. You either have to bring the results back, or if you do field work, you have to bring it back, work with a team of who does the analysis of the data. You're interacting with your customers, you're interacting with your co-workers. So having some people skills is somewhere that, you know, a lot of times people get into the sciences because you're focused on your work, but the reality is you have to interact. So if you have some leadership training, interaction training, that's a way to go. And that will apply to whatever your career takes you, whether you're management or you're out in the field still. You still have to deal with people. That's an important skill to have.
Any questions still?
My question is related back to resumes. In regards to, I know that there's this tendency to, you want to limit yourself to one page in regards to your resume, but some people may have a very dynamic work history. How would you recommend that they put this information forward if there is a significant amount of background that is applicable to the job that they're applying? Would you look, do employers look past the second page of a resume?
So let's repeat the question again, just for someone.
So how many pages on a resume, and how to fit a dynamic work history into a limited space? Is that the question? Do you mind if I go for it? So my big brother, who works in parks operations, actually, he recently had me look through his resume, and he had a five-page resume. I was like, whoa, this is too much. And the interesting thing was he had lots of experience there. I think that if 2 pages is actually fine. I don't think anyone's doing 1-page resumes anymore because you don't want the font size that small. So 2 pages if you're starting out, and I'm not offended by 3 pages. If you're a mid-career professional and you're looking at a transfer sort of within your field, then I tried to get my brother's down to 4 pages. The thing to do to get it concise is think about what experience you want to present, and you don't necessarily have to hammer the same point over and over and over again. So if it says in your most recent job that you've done project management or you've done this and it shows a couple of results, then you don't need to provide 3 paragraphs in every job saying that you've done that over and over and over again. I'm looking for it once, and if I see everything I'm looking for once, I'll interview you, and then we can talk about how long you've been doing it for and how awesome you are. So if there's a variety of skills in the job posting, try to match as many as you can. And if you're going back into jobs that you held for, a co-op job or something like that, and you have jobs that have been longer since, then just, I know no one likes to drop experience off the bottom of their resume, but at a certain point you have to for brevity. And if you've got job experience going back 10 years, and then you're still listing all the other stuff, I believe you've been doing more stuff before then, so you don't have to worry about all of the, editor of this or, coordinator of this and stuff like that if you have other more recent things to show.
I have a slightly different perspective. Only because a lot of our positions are about technical experience and projects. So we sometimes get 20-page CVs, and we're not scared of them. We want to see
Excellent.
it. It really depends on the position that you're applying for. I would say the things that she's looking for, I would look for in the cover letter. So you take that detailed information and you summarize it. And I read the cover letter, and if I'm like, okay, I want to read further. Yes, this is the right amount of experience. They have the right skill set that I'm looking for. Now I'll read the book and go through the book. And what I'm looking for, a lot of our work is environmental services for mining companies. So what I want to see, let's say, is a detailed description of what you did for every single mining client that you've worked for. So I'm looking at all the different technical things that you've done, whether you managed the project, whether you did the field work, whether you did the writing, whether you did the stats. So I'm looking at all the different projects, and it can add up. I mean, after 5 years of working, you can have like 4 or 5 pages of different mining clients or oil and gas clients or whatever. And that's really important to me. I may not read it in super detail, but I want to see it like a trophy case.
We had a question for you. I'm wondering if it's good to catch it.
Oh.
I was just wondering, as coming out of our undergrad programs, you're saying if it was for something to do with mining consulting, if we didn't actually have experience in that field, would you want us to relate one of our courses to that, or not even talk about if we knew processes and stuff? Would that be something that you'd pick up?
Can we repeat the question again?
You were saying if you're just coming straight out of school and you didn't have specific mining experience or environmental work experience, would you want us to see a description of your courses?
That would relate.
That would relate to the job. I would say that if you're applying for a junior position, we know that you don't have a lot of work experience. What I would do is if there was a particular project maybe that you worked on within your degree, there's a lot of practical projects that you do in school that maybe highlight certain experience. Like, we did this 2-month program where we were monitoring water quality in a lake. We did this type of sampling. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just a textbook, right? Anything that's applied, for sure. but we don't need a description of every single course that we took, like, because we know there's very similar programs among all the environmental programs.
Question?
When it's April, May coming up, and generally for me, I've gone to a traditional college university setting where school ends in April and you're starting to apply for jobs in May. So right now I'm kind of anxious to apply for jobs, but I graduate in August, hopefully.
You will, you
Yes.
will.
And so when would you recommend for some people like ourselves in this dynamic program to start applying for jobs? When are you looking for people for the fall, for after the summer season? Students have gone back to work, school and stuff like that.
I guess
Repeat the
the
question,
question
please.
I
Thank
think
you.
is when should one be applying for jobs, or when are employers perhaps looking for resumes and open to accepting them and might be hiring. I guess it's different in various environments. In ours, in consulting, there isn't just one period. Projects roll in, they roll out, they're completed, and so I would not be scared to submit a resume at any time, not just, okay, I've got another 2 weeks while I'm writing exams and then I'll be available, so I better not submit it beforehand. I think all of those aspects can be taken into account. And projects may come up, we know they're coming in 3 months, and so availability at that time may be quite appropriate, and knowing about that. So the planning for it goes on. And so don't just limit yourself to, okay, the end of April, beginning of May is when I apply, and after that or before that, it's not worthwhile. There's opportunities that happen throughout the year, and so what works for you in terms of availability may be a good gauge for that, but don't be scared to apply at other times.
Thank you.
I completely agree with that. Regional governments don't have distinct time to apply. We do have some seasonal work, but generally they're very seasonal. You know, in the summer months for park naturalists or something like that. But really, it's based on, you know, who's leading the organization or new things happening. One thing you could do is start exploring businesses that you're interested in. Start meeting some of the people that could be your potential employers. Find out what they do. Do that exploring in advance, so that when it's time you see a posting, then you may already know who's that job is for, or who's advertising for that job, and have that connection already in place versus starting from scratch when the posting comes up.
And I'll add a little bit. It used to be really popular to do informational interviews, and every employer is done. They don't have the time. They know that informational interviews take up a lot of time, and the same people like me who say yes to every single one and can't say no then gets completely overwhelmed. So again, joining the professional organizations or finding another way to get that conversation is the most sort of modern way. And it used to be like 5 years ago, everyone said do informational interviews and find out, and employers are busy.
Yes.
And so it's to help them as well with that time and find a way to talk with them that's helpful to them. Oh, 2 questions.
In regards to the photos, on a situation like a LinkedIn, so that would you put your photo on LinkedIn, or would you not if you're looking for work?
I have my photo on LinkedIn. I had headshots done 4 or 5 years ago. I just get headshots done every few years so that I've got something professional, and it's not that expensive. It's an investment. I'm still using my headshots from 5 years ago because I look way younger.
Can I refocus this question a little bit? Because one of the formal questions was, how important is social media in looking for work? So we open it up beyond LinkedIn. And how important is it for job searching and or career development? What is we do have 5 minutes. So unless someone has a way more important question, I will let this one. Are you sure? Okay. We can go a little bit over as well, but we want to make sure you guys get a little bit of a break. So I'll have that maybe as our last.
Okay, so how important is social media? Well, I have lots of LinkedIn connections. Haven't hired someone as a result of, and I don't really know of any of my friends who've actually applied for and got a job from LinkedIn. With Twitter, it's a little bit different. I don't know if it's necessarily employment related, but it's related to your presence in your sector. And if you're going to start out on that, get a good professional handle. Keep your Twitter, if your Twitter feed is going to be used at all for work stuff, keep your personal stuff off of it. And go out and find the movers and shakers in your field. Follow them and start engaging them so that they know who you are. The jury's out on return on investment on social media still, but it actually, LinkedIn groups specifically have added a lot to my professional development. Not so much to actual job finding of anyone I know so far.
Yeah, I don't use Twitter. I actually have no idea how to use Twitter. LinkedIn, I'm on it, but again, I echo that. I don't know. It's a nice way to kind of have some like individuals in your group that you're like, oh yeah, what's their email address, kind of thing. It's a really extensive address book, essentially. There are some recruiters on there that kind of peek at your profiles or whatever, but I don't think they would be looking for junior positions, people introductory. They would be looking for very specialized people that they want to snap up from other companies, I would say. So I don't know if it would be that helpful for getting a career.
I think it varies somewhat between individuals in firms as to the extent to which they use it and depend on it. As a whole, I would say we don't depend on it and use it very heavily at all. It's not a primary resource, I would say. Certainly connections and emails and advertising within certain journals and magazines does serve as a means. So looking at those advertisements, and they're quite often broader than for a single position, and firms will very often do that. They'll indicate the areas in which they're hiring, and of course just the website for firms themselves. That's probably the biggest source and biggest recruiting aid that we do have.
Yeah, social media has a lot of danger to it too, right? Because a lot of times you get your personal life attached to that, and so when people are looking at that, they judge you on your personal life as well as your professional life. So it's something that I wouldn't use as my primary tool to get my name out there. LinkedIn is a little better on that, but Facebook and Twitter, there's some danger in that, right? In fact, some people may judge you on who follows you or who you follow, right? So it's a strange balance there. I wouldn't base my career on using that format for work.
I just wanted to make a comment for those of you who aren't part of the chamber and want to take part in it's absolutely so valuable. They have a series of lunch and learn sessions. They have a session next week on Tuesday on social networking. They also have a big boot camp, but if you wanted to find out more about how you can at least utilize it to your best benefit, Peter, who's with the chamber, is doing his presentation at, I think, 11. And their lunch sessions are awesome, so I'm just saying that as affirming. It'd be down at the chamber office on Fort Street.
And if you all, I'm gonna say this is gonna go off the record maybe because we're gonna edit the thing, but the BCom program has paid for BCom students to go to chamber events. They've bought a block set and they can go. So if you guys really want to go, say, hey, the BCom students get it, why don't we? And you can talk to your dean. Did I say that out loud? But if the need is there and if it's valuable, it's been done before, right? So if you guys want to do that. And you can also go as a guest of a chamber member once. So if you wanted to do some of that, you know, getting to know someone who is a chamber member and say, hey, could I go with you once to see what that's like? Reach out. And why not? Why not try that? Right?
The West Shore Chamber of Commerce is actually quite hip hop happening organization. They're growing fast, and they're the only chamber of commerce in Canada that actually has sustainability as part of its core mission and vision statements. So they are doing a lot of work with Royal Roads and in the community to build clean tech jobs and things like that. So you don't have to go all the way into town. They're right over here.
Good advertising. Okay, I have 2 questions I saw. So your hand up was ahead for a lot longer, sorry.
I'm just wondering, being on the applicant side of things during interviews, what is job competition like right now, and what's kind of your honest opinion about the outlook in, like, say 20 or 30 years for us?
I will have to make it super quick, so 2 minutes. That's a big topic.
The question was, what's the competition like, and what do you see in the near future or distant future? I'll answer that. One example is we just finished applying for someone to do data entry and environmental laws, like requirements, and we had 51 applicants on a data entry position, which is, I was actually thought that was small because I was expecting more. However, there's constantly jobs coming up, and it's, a lot of times it's just timing. Sometimes we get 20 resumes, sometimes we get 150. And when we get 150, believe me, we go through it quite quickly. We give everybody a chance, but it's tough out there. But it's a matter of timing. Sometimes we're surprised how few applicants, and sometimes we get 5 applicants, and it's a decent job, but it's just a matter of timing. In the future, at least with our organization, we see a lot of senior people who've been there for 20, 30 years leaving the organization. So there is definitely a shift to new hiring. So I think the future looks bright, at least from what I've been seeing, is that there's more and more younger people getting into, and when I say younger, I mean young in their career, getting into the industry. So I think it's positive on my side.
Sorry, I was just going to make a quick comment.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. And then we can ask, you guys can stay around for individual questions as well.
Sometimes it's easy to look for jobs, look for job postings and apply for them. You know, as he just said, you're going to get 50 to 150 competitors for a job. I have never applied for a job posting, ever. What I do is I look at what I'm good at, what's my skill set, I investigate a few specific companies, what can I offer them, I learn about that company, what can I do for them, what are my strengths, what can I offer them to make them a better place, and I go in there, I don't compete with anybody. And I say, here I am.
Yeah.
Here I am, this is what I can do for you.
Yeah.
It shows that you know yourself, you're a leader, you're confident, and you have a vision. And that speaks volumes, and you don't need a job posting. So I would do that.
Thursday afternoon is the best time to approach people like that.
It's so true.
It is. Thursday afternoon, right after lunch, you know, send in your letter, make a phone call. Actually, what I was told is you make the phone call before you've actually sent your resume. Oh, did you get the resume? Oh, I'm sorry I didn't get to you. I'll send it. And then they're looking for it. You didn't waste the first copy of your resume. And then when you follow up, they're like, oh, I have looked at your resume. No, if they're generally not interested, they're just not interested, then you don't waste their time. But if they see something in you and you've made the initiative to go and check it out, then that's that go-getting attitude people want.